Most people are targeting the wrong names on waivers right now, but in week 8, I see 10 players hiding in plain sight that your league mates are ignoring. But if this is your first time here, I'm Joe. I was the guy yelling about Kayshon Boutte 2 weeks ago before he scored 3 touchdowns, so you might want to listen up. I've also helped thousands of people just like you win their fantasy leagues over the last decade, and I plan to do the same for you in this video, but I start off every video with some urgent fantasy football news and answer some timely Q&A. Then we get into today's one key topic, so feel free to skip ahead, but let's get right into it. Sad update from Tampa Bay, obviously, as we get into the news. Former Bucs running back Doug Martin has passed away at just 36 years old. The cause of death has yet to be confirmed, but the team called him a fan favorite, one of the best to ever wear the uniform. Martin had some monster seasons back in his prime, so prayers go out to his family. He was very sorry to hear this news. There's really no great way to transition, but let's talk about Jayden Daniels exiting with that hamstring injury in the third quarter, and he did not return in that game against Dallas. He grabs the back of his right leg, limped back, and went straight to the locker room after he was hit. So he's scheduled for an MRI on Monday. When we heard a little bit more about it today, it looks like there was some good news, not significant or long-term, but we're still not sure for his status this coming Monday night. For fantasy, Daniels has been a solid dual threat option, very good at times, and if he misses any time, this offense definitely can lose a little bit of juice. But Marcus Mariota has also been pretty good in relief of him so far this year, so we'll see if we get more Mariota coming up or if Daniels will be just fine. Speaking of maybe not just fine, the Jets have benched Justin Fields yet again. So halftime basically is when he came out of this game after another rough outing, completing just 6 passes for 46 yards. This comes right after the game where he had 0 touchdowns in 2 games overall now. So Tyrod Taylor took over in the second half, but he also threw 2 picks of his own. So the Jets are a mess for fantasy. This throws the entire offense into flux. If Fields doesn't get the job back, everyone side of this passing game takes a huge hit. On the positive side, Rashee Rice was absolutely electric in his season debut. Arrowhead was definitely loud on Sunday. It looks like him coming back from suspension immediately, he can make him an impact, catching 2 touchdowns against the Raiders. First game back after more than a year away. The Chiefs' offense obviously looked great. They scored on their first 5 drives for fantasy. This is just a reminder that Rice is Mahomes' go-to weapon. If you weren't able to trade for him yet, I still think that he's an amazing guy to go after in your league. I was actually able to secure him in a deal in my most important league this past week before the game started, so I was really pumped about that. Obviously pumped to see him get back out there and really be like a wide receiver 1 the rest of the way and prove that impact immediately. The next one we got to talk about, Jalen Hurts. Perfect passer rating against the Vikings. I was at this game. Obviously, this passing game looked very good as well. Bounced back from 2 straight losses, put up a perfect passer rating against those Vikings. He threw for 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, absolutely lit it up in the second half, including a 79-yard bomb to Devonta Smith. That's the kind of performance that reminds fantasy managers why Hurts is a weekly league winner. So happy for this passing game, and the Hurts owners in general are probably feeling pretty good going into this next week. All right, let's jump into some questions. Had some really good ones on the last video. If you have any additional rest of season, trade questions, anything like that, drop them in the comments below this video. We'll try and get to as many of them as possible on the next video. But the first one that we had to go over today, I was just offered Puka and Chimere for Devonta Smith, Nico Collins, and Judkins. What we thinking? Yeah, the Judkins one was definitely one that I got wrong. He was obviously in a really great spot in this weather game that we had in Cleveland, but I definitely didn't predict him going out there and scoring 3 touchdowns. So apologies to anyone on the live stream on Sunday that ended up not starting him in DFS. But Puka Nacua, Alvin Kamara, Devonta Smith, Nico Collins, Judkins. Yeah, I think that's side B for me on this one. If you really need like that extra seam on your team, Nico Collins, I still have rated relatively high rest of season. Judkins and Devonta Smith together, this combination I do have significantly ahead of Puka and Chimere the rest of the way. I will caveat that though, if you are a team that's like 5-1, 5-2, something like that, I think that having Puka Nacua obviously gives you that league winning upside, that alpha card. But if you need depth, like this is an absolute haul on the Puka non-side for Devonta Smith, Nico Collins, Judkins. I think I would do that. Yeah. Next one, just traded Javonte and T. Higgins for Saquon Barkley and Brock Bowers. Thoughts? I prefer the Saquon and Brock Bowers side. So yeah, nice job on that one. I think you crushed it pretty significantly, actually. So side A of the next one, would you trade away Saquon Barkley for Breece Hall and Olave? So Saquon for Breece Hall and Olave. Yeah, I think that Breece Hall and Olave, it's very close. I'm still like an Olave guy for sure. But I think I'd rather have the best player in this deal, and that's Saquon Barkley. I still think that he can turn it around. This one is relatively close. If you need some depth, I think that it's okay. It's relatively even. If it's an even deal, I typically try and side with who has the best player, who's getting the best player. Should I do a trade where I get Judkins and Rome Odunze for Rico Dowdle and Olave? I prefer Quinshon Judkins and Rome Odunze personally. Yes, I think that's one that I would absolutely do if you want to move on from Rico Dowdle. I think that's a strong way to do it. Would you trade Kenneth Walker for Brown and Harrison Jr.? So Kenneth Walker for A.J. Brown and Harrison Jr.? My guess is you're talking about Hollywood Brown, right? Either way, yeah, I think I'd do that deal. I'm not that high on Kenneth Walker the rest of the way. The struggle in Seattle is they're just splitting carries, but also that they're just not really being used in the passing game at all. Sam Darnold has like the lowest target share to running backs so far this year. I've got the opportunity to trade Amon-Ra and Pickens for Bijan and Ridley. Should I do it? Yeah, I would do that deal. Yeah, Ridley has not been amazing, obviously, but I still think getting Bijan would be my preference. I do try and break ties on the stud running backs versus just getting a stud wide receiver plus another. I mean, this one's relatively close from a value perspective, but it's much harder to find a Bijan Robinson, I think, than try and find a George Pickens, right? So even if you were to wash these, I think I would still prefer the side that gets Bijan. This is the time of year where I still want to try and capture the best player in these deals versus just getting a little bit more value, if that makes sense. But it depends on where you're at. All right, A.J. Brown, Darren Waller for Derrick Henry, and George Kittle. Yeah, I think the Derrick Henry and George Kittle side wins this by a landslide, my man. If you can get that done, well done. If I wasn't able to answer your question today, just a reminder that I do have my membership community, the Fantasy Accelerator. So if you want to get all of your questions answered and you want some year-round access to me, we got you covered for draft season, in-season, and off-season, everything you need to win your league. But if you're not ready for that yet, top150free.com, you can unlock my top 150 rankings that I'm using personally still to set my lineups every single week. Just toss your email in there and you'll get it right away. All right, let's jump into today's one key topic. 10 players you'll regret leaving on your waiver wire in week 8. So there's definitely a few guys out there that won't be available in every league, but if they are available, you should grab them immediately. So the guy in the thumbnail is the one that I think we should talk about first, and it's Hollywood Brown. So I think we've talked about him like 3 weeks in a row now. Obviously, with Rashee Rice coming back, things change at least a little bit in this dynamic, but he is available in 51.8% of leagues right now. So Hollywood Brown, back-to-back touchdowns. I think there's really just a lot of leverage in having the trust of Patrick Mahomes, and regardless of him coming back, regardless of Rashee Rice coming back, still think that there's definitely a role here. The way he's getting schemed around the goal line is always going to be valuable in this offense. Who's going to score a ton of touchdowns? He's definitely someone that I really want. So even with Rashee Rice back, he's still scored in week 7. Rashee Rice did draw 10 targets, which is a little bit concerning for the floor here. But if this KC offense can kind of find its stride, I do think it's a better ecosystem to boost overall touchdown odds in general. So he still had some games here with a lot of targets, and he can definitely handle it if there is any injuries the rest of the way as well. So I think he's a must-add, obviously, if he's on waiver wire. And if you're going to be trading for him, I actually think it might be a decent buy low opportunity, even though he just scored, just kind of playing that narrative that Rice is going to continue to be the alpha here. I think there's going to be a little bit more volatility, obviously, with Rice active, but in a high leverage offense where the usage is going to keep him squarely kind of in the mix, I still think that he's a decent flex option the rest of the way, especially while this offense stays hot. We're going to talk about 5 wide receivers, 5 running backs today. Let's talk about Dike in Tennessee. So this was one of those ones too, where if the breakout was like on tape, not just in the box score for a while, right? So 4 for 4, 70 yards and a TD in week 7, 0 incompletions on those looks. 56 of those yards came on a 1 second, like basically series surge capped by a 38-yard touchdown from Cam Yard. So really like that field stretch usage that he's got there. He entered week 7 with just 26 yards all season, but this was like a usage spike moment to me. So with Ridley out, the route window and the route tree just really opened up a little bit. So he ran routes on 31 of 46 dropbacks in week 6, and then he earned targets on 23% of his routes overall. So when he's out there, he's going to be getting looks. So really like that. We're kind of like, we have to point towards like the growing pains for Cam Ward in general, but I think that Dike is one of those guys that could take advantage. And if they do try and go a little bit younger in general and like this messy offense, the Titans could end up looking to a guy like this amid some dysfunction for sure. So is this just a flash, or is this like our potential like flex if we get in a bind through the bye weeks here. I actually think that Ridley's absence really boosts his routes, which actually could lead to more of these vertical opportunities, which I do like. You're basically adding like an aggressive spike week type of player that if you have to put in a bind could actually give you a little bit of ceiling, not just a floor, which is really nice in those situations. Let's talk about Xavier Legette. 9 catches for 92 yards in week 7. He ran a route on nearly every drop back. So a guy like this who obviously has talent, who's obviously going to be used around the goal line, is someone that I think we have to be scooping up on waivers. This is the situation that we're looking at now where we have potentially a quarterback injury, but Andy Dalton's still been really good and serviceable when he's been in there. So I actually don't think there's much of a drop off there overall. Career highs in targets and receptions last week. I think that realistically, the Panthers have scored, I think, 27 points in 3 straight weeks. So the boost that you're getting there and really just the added floor that you're getting from the target share in general, I think Xavier Legette is someone that should not be on waivers anywhere at the moment. So I would grab him. Troy Franklin, another guy that I think we talked about last week. He's still available in 71% of leagues. He had 10 targets and a touchdown in week 7. So you really like to see that vote of confidence that they're getting him in the red zone, at least 3 catches in 3 straight games heading into week 7. So he's got that floor that we need. It's starting to form a little bit. So after that early season fumble that everyone wants to talk about, they've still kept him involved, which is really strong. And really just the connection that he's had with Bo Nix, I think is real. He had that really nice game in week 2, but also he's one of those guys that's like just going to give you a really nice floor, that underneath PPR type of usage. So he's proven that he can win deep as well when Nix does kind of extend that route tree for him. So the security is one of those situations where I think these guys are super valuable, especially as we approach the bye week. So he's kind of like that conventional wide receiver 2 on this team, and second on the team in targets in week 6, and then obviously the touchdown coming forward. I think that he's going to be one of those guys that if he keeps rolling, he could be a guy that you feel pretty confident just tossing in your flex during the bye weeks. And if we get a little bit more efficiency, which Nix has improved at least a little bit, there's still room for a second producer in this offense. So bullish on Troy Franklin. Kayshon Boutte. Yeah, this is a guy that, again, should not be on waivers anywhere. We talked about him last week and the week before. He's available in 72.9% of leagues. The real draw here is May's deep ball, right? So that's the exact lane that Boutte is going to continue to run. 39-yard strike from Drake May in week 7, getting that touchdown. I think it's really just proof that they've designed him like as the downfield option in this offense. He's not just like that gadget type of player. 22.6% of his routes are go routes, and New England is basically using him specifically on those type of routes, which is really nice for spike weeks, and we've already seen the spike weeks on film. But the touchdowns are piling up as well, despite the modest volume that we've seen. 4 touchdowns on the season, 3 in weeks 6 through 7. So the touchdown rate signals to me at least that he has a bankable like spike week odds. At least in any given week, he can boom in a good direction for us. The ceiling is sky high for a guy like this with May playing so well. So I think that this is like the cheapest like access that you can get to the Pats like vertical shots that we're getting a lot each and every week at this point. So wide receiver, Kayshon Boutte, Troy Franklin, Legette, Dike, and Hollywood Brown. Let's get into the running backs on the waiver wire to consider. The first one that we're going to talk about, Kyle Monangai. So this guy is one of these situations where he's one injury away from potentially being a league winner. 13 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown in week 7. Not in garbage time. He still has a role in the red zone no matter what. He had 2 catches for 13 yards, so he's getting a little bit of passing down usage as well. So he has like really like a built-in role already, regardless of what is going on with Swift in this offense. So the offense in general is just driving a lot of opportunities. Chicago's 4-2, stacked some wins in week 6 and 7. They've had some positive game scripts. Caleb Williams is currently the QB9 and has looked a lot better. So that just means more red zone trips, more opportunities for these running backs to score touchdowns. He's really just like the perfect complement to DeAndre Swift. So he's expected to get like 10 to 15 touches, which is like a pretty bankable role, honestly. He's going to give you physical running, broken tackles, all of those things. The coaches keep talking about him in general. He was on the field for the 2-minute drill earlier in the year, so he's really just already gained a lot of trust in some of the situational packages as well. So I think regardless of what's going on with Swift and how good Swift has been as well, this is one of those guys that's just one injury away from being an absolute league winner. So he's someone that should not be on the waiver wire. He's still available in 95% of leagues. Tayjae Spears, available in 70.1% of leagues. So the post IR role has really just been climbing. So week 6, the touches spiked versus week 5. And now in week 7, he had 5 rushes for 22 yards, 3 receptions for 18 yards. So that's back-to-back games with rushing plus receiving involvement, which is really nice. And they're basically just splitting this backfield in general. So even when Pollard kind of led things in week 6, the touch gap is definitely inching a little bit closer. And the committee in general is starting to tighten a little bit. So anytime I see like the pressure on one side of a backfield like this, it does feel like there's a little bit of leverage in being early on the side that is growing. Another one of these guys that one injury away has already shown that he can be active in the passing game as well. So if the touches are already even, this is one of those situations where I think we have to get in there, make sure he's on rosters, and we have access to this if there is an injury. He obviously becomes one of the better RB2s that they are, or that exists. And also, like before that, still has a role. If you need help with your flex spot, he's someone that will give you consistent floor points, I think, and still bullish going forward. Blake Corum. So kind of a similar situation, right? So week 7, we saw the usage spike. He matched Kyren Williams in attempts, 12 rushes, also added a catch. That's really just contingency value and an immediate plug-in for a guy if LA does lean run heavy in a specific game. The burst has been pretty real, though. So the early season flashes we've seen, week 2, 6.6 yards per carry on 8 carries in week 3 proves that he can bring some real juice when he's called upon. So closer to like on basically anytime you can get a guy on an offense like this that's going to get the high value carries in really good game scripts and kind of as like that complementary finisher, he's just more than a handcuff in my opinion. So the coaches have already been praising him as being explosive, a good football player, all those things that you want to hear coaches say that are going to continue to give him opportunities. So I think he's a bullish ad behind Kyren with real weekly pop, but also like a lot of contingent value. If again, Kyren does go down, I think this is the time of the year where we really want to make sure that some of the best handcuffs are not on waiver wires. Speaking of that, Justice Hill in Baltimore, available in 80% of leagues. He really has that PPR role on lockdown. 5 catches in week 6, which was really nice. Played 40 to 51% of snaps in week 3, and they keep basically increasing his workload a little bit. The Ravens were obviously on bye in week 7, but I think that the ceiling is kind of flash. We had that 76-yard touchdown. You have the receiving TD, and then also like Derrick Henry hasn't really made a dent in any of this receiving usage so far. So if this team ends up basically coming back with Lamar coming back obviously from that injury, I think we get a nice bump there just for more touchdown opportunities. But also he's a guy that's going to give you ceiling if his efficiency can hold where it's at. We get a little bit more volume there. He ends up looking like a really nice PPR ad, a guy that you can put on your bench and stash and feel pretty good about capturing that upside if he does get a little bit more opportunities down the road. Samaje Perine, available in 98.7% of leagues. This offense has kind of been stabilized with Joe Flacco, so I think the running backs are at least back in business here. Perine set new season highs in carries and rushing yards last week as the offense kind of opened up a little bit. Since his defense has been an absolute mess, so the games are high scoring and really just nice game scripts for just like more running back usage through the passing game, that sort of stuff. And the role has kind of drifted towards a true timeshare. Chase Brown's obviously been one of the more disappointing fantasy draft picks this year, but there is definitely some room for someone in this offense to step up a little bit and more volume to flow his way. So I think that this is one of those situations where the passing game utility that you get when certain game scripts tilt that direction would just lead to a lot higher of a floor in PPR leagues and still have some contingent upside regardless of what happens with Chase Brown. He's a really nice stash, I think, as the Cincinnati offense starts to ramp up a little bit. And I think if we can see his touches climb even just a little bit more, the strength of schedule is actually really good. One of the easiest paths the rest of the way. So he's one of those guys that I think is kind of a bullish depth add to your roster, and you just need something to break your way in this one. That's it for today. Make sure you guys hit subscribe, and if you have any trade questions, make sure you drop those below because the next video is going to be going through what I think are the top trade targets for week 8. We'll see you then.